I'll be honest. I was so excited before jumping on here because I was pretty sure that I'd found a way to lower this microphone, and I completely disassembled the stand, being like, "I got it.
Yo,
I got
hit
it sorted
record.
out."
Oh, you are recording. Okay,
It's
good.
recording. We're recording. I never let the gold nuggets pass by. But
I was gonna ask you, does this look cooler today? I've kind of got more of the mic. I want it to be more like Taylor.
dude,
Actually, here's something else we could do. Look, I got a teleprompter, so I can see you if I do this. How's this? Does it look like I'm looking at you now?
It looks like you're looking at me. Remember when I had a teleprompter on this app that I tried to use for some of my non-podcast videos that I was recording, and then everybody was like, "Why are you looking at the screen like this?" And I was like, because it took me 13 takes to get an intro, and I was tired, and I didn't want to continue on.
Your eyes and your head were going like, you know, it was good. It was a good intro. I would have read it too if I had a well-written intro like that. I was like, he nailed the intro. So his eyes and head were going.
Thank you. Well, I realized that when people read a teleprompter, like at an award show or whatever, the reason why they don't look like they're doing that is because it's like small and 20 feet away.
Yeah.
And I realized that my screen is large and 1 foot away. And so it just really changed the dynamic of things.
You can even see the text in your glasses as a reflection. Just like,
yeah, exactly.
In like size 70 font.
Just all of my wisdom in reverse. But before I jumped on this podcast, I was so excited because I thought I had figured out how to like make this microphone go to a different level. So I disassembled the whole thing, and then I was just about to jump on, and all I really had was my microphone stand in pieces. And nothing changed. So it didn't work. I was excited for nothing. It was a long, long weekend. So, but we're back. We're back. I spent the entire weekend figuring out how to AI myself for this episode. So this isn't actually me talking. This is just my avatar.
Well, you might actually get some intelligent points out of you then, which I'm looking forward to, AI Taylor.
You might. I wouldn't hold your breath, but...
let me see your fingers. It's like 7 of them.
Yeah, just an extra digit.
Yeah, there's like a 6 or 7 digits. Yeah,
at least I don't have a second head.
There you go. Might help.
One face is bad enough.
Double the ideas.
It's crazy that you're talking towards me right now. Now I'm hyper conscious.
Does it make you feel uncomfortable?
No. It makes me feel like you're really engaged with me here. It's a whole different profile than what I'm used to.
It's a hard one because sometimes you can feel uncomfortable when people look at the camera. It's like, why are you staring at me?
No, you're good. I mean, I can't speak for the audience. I can't speak for our watcher.
Yeah.
Watchers.
No, I think there's 2 now or 3. We have 3. We have 5 YouTube subscribers. At least 2 of them are us.
Coming up in the world. One's our moms.
Yeah.
One's my mom. One's my wife, or my fiance and your wife.
She might be. Yeah. They've been following along, but we have more LinkedIn followers, so we're getting some traction here, if you will.
Yeah. We're doing great. I'm proud of us.
Like 7 or 8.
I'm proud of us. They say progress is a slow process, so that's just what we're doing.
If you're Canadian, if you're American, it's progress is slow process.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey.
Tell me about it.
Totally. Are you're just wearing your American hat again? Your New York Yankees.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we gave me an inch. I took a mile with the hat thing.
You are. Every day it's gonna be a different color Yankees hat.
Well, now I get to show off my hat collection, which is kind of exciting.
Okay. Well, that's only because you can't show off your watch collection. It wouldn't make sense.
It's true, but I also just I grew out my hair and I don't like it. I realize, so I wear a hat all the time now. So
you're getting married in a couple weeks, right?
2 weeks. We leave 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we're.
My recommendation is get your hair cut a bit early because when they inevitably cut it a little too tight, you'll have a little room to grow. It won't feel so.
Yeah, we have a barber coming. We have a barber coming on the wedding day. So
is he a friend or she?
No, it's an Italian barber.
So
we actually have somebody coming, and my heavy lift for the wedding planning was that I had to build a schedule for the barber of all the people who were getting their haircuts and at what time it was going to happen, and I still haven't done it.
So at least if you get ChatGPT to do it, man.
Yeah, 100%. We'll just AI that thing. Sure.
And so if your haircut is butchered, at least everyone's will be butchered. You'll blend in with a bunch of. So is this like a local guy that you go to?
No, I mean we're getting married in Italy, so this is like This is like someone that our wedding planner found locally in the region where
Oh,
we're getting married. He's actually like
I thought you were
coming.
bringing your local Italian barber to Italy. I'm like, that seems a little excessive.
No, imagine that as a perk though. I need you to travel with me.
Yeah, traveling barber. I mean, you got to look good. You got to
Yeah,
look
like
good.
what am I, LeBron James?
Yeah. Does he do that? I would not be surprised.
I mean, probably. You got to stay fresh at all
You do.
times.
You do.
But yeah, I'll chat GPT the schedule, and then I'll also chat GPT haircut recommendations for people, and just make them. I'll be like, this is what you have to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can generate the images.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the more productive applications of AI. And today we're going to talk about a couple of other practical, useful, valuable applications of AI.
And possibly more profitable uses. Yeah.
Yeah, more profitable. I wouldn't recommend it for hairstyle recommendation. Well, I mean, depends what you're into, but yeah, AI. So I mean, I think this is a hard one. This is a hard topic to cover because I think it's so big and so fast that it's like, where do you start? What do you leave out? I think is more important, because I think with AI, things move so fast that if you try to go too broad, you're going to miss things, or you're just going to tap into things that aren't so relevant. So I think today the whole goal here is to talk about the essential things that you need to use or know to use AI in your marketing, without going too broad and confusing people. I think the focus here is really to just narrow the scope on what matters, without getting too lost in the weeds or giving people too much to think about. So.
It won't be, I mean, like, I feel like we're going to come back to AI a lot. So this isn't going to be the AI episode. I feel like this is going to be the first of many that AI is at least going to play a part in. And that seems to be the trend. I think it was Toby Luke of Shopify. He just put out a memo that he put to his staff. He published it publicly. So he owns Shopify. And he was basically saying, from now on, the expectation is that you're using AI in all departments. We've set up the environments for you in these tools, so you're supposed to use them. In fact, we're not even letting you hire new people unless you can tell us why you're not able to do this with AI. So the tone is clear, and I think this is going to happen with all businesses. And as marketers, like, part of my job now is to say, you know, I've always been successful because I've adopted technology, and this is the next technology that you and I as marketers have to get good at, and me as a consultant will have to help my clients integrate with their business, and you as a practitioner you have to use, right? And you're already seeing it. You had an employee for a while, and now you're back to you and maybe some contractors in AI. Are you noticing yourself that you're able to get more done without additional team members yet, before we get into the details, or how's that going?
Yeah. Like I think to kind of preface it all, like, I think that, and we'll dive more into this as we go, but I think, you know, I've seen in the last 6 months, even my role within my business has pivoted to being more strategy and staying on top of tools and developing frameworks, again, that we'll talk a little bit later in this episode. But my job has pivoted towards developing systems, managing strategy, and then handing off like the frameworks that I've created with AI to my contractors so that they can get things done more quickly. And that in turn is helping to, it's helping to improve the profitability of my business. It's helping to create more consistency. You know, like, a lot of what we do is creative work, writing, video, whatever it might be. And when it's strictly human driven, there's a lot of subjectivity in the mix. I think that AI has really helped make things more profitable, make things more streamlined, removed or enhanced, you know, consistency across the things that we're doing, because you're tailoring it per client brand and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really, it's huge. And even in the amount of time that I've, been toying with it, I've noticed that, like, if I was to do this all myself, I would get things done in a quarter of the time, probably. That's not to say that there's not a significant human element to it. There is, but yeah, it's been massive in the way that it's changed my business and will continue. So like, that kind of is a segue. I wanted to talk a little bit, you know, about the immediate and longer term impacts of AI on marketing, what that is looking like now, what that may look like as we move forward. But I think even before getting into that, just because it's a natural segue from what we were just talking about, I think there's a stigma around AI for marketers and also for clients, right? I think that, like, there's two sides to the coin. On one side of the coin, I have a purist mentality as a creative professional. where, and I was talking to my sister about this, who's an artist, and artists are really upset about the use of AI because it takes that like human element from it. So I think that for me, it took a long time for me to go like, okay, I'm going to lean into this, because I felt like it took away that pure element of it. And I've realized that it doesn't. And then on the client side as well, I think that sometimes people can be weird, like if you're working with clients or if you're doing this in your job, you might be weary to say, hey, I'm using AI to, enhance these processes or to streamline these, this workflow, or to boost the pace of the work that we're doing. But I think what we're learning is that if you're using AI the right way, there's no need for that stigma. Have you found that? Like, do you get that kind of vibe from AI?
Yeah, I mean, if you take AI out of the box without good prompting, without good instruction, without good input, without good value, you're going to get a pretty bad product that's going to feel overly generic. It's going to use all these phrases that are clearly you wouldn't sound like you're used. So really, it's like whether I'm hiring an agency and whether they're using AI or people, I don't care, as long as Taylor, in their case, puts a stamp of approval on the content. And the way I gauge whether content is good or not is do my eyes glaze over as soon as I start consuming this or listening to this, or am I actually engaged? And really, that comes down to like understanding the person who it's intended for and serving their needs, because we're inundated with stuff we could watch or consume. And so I don't care whether you use AI or people, but if it starts to suck, or if it looks, excuse my French, if it looks not very good, then I'm just not going to work with you, right? And so, like the bar is still high, and the proof is, in the pudding, if you will.
The bar's arguably higher now because AI has given this ability to people to just churn out garbage. I have a note later in our points it's garbage in, garbage out. That's all AI is a middleman. Garbage in, garbage out. But to your point, like I think it's not only do you have to maintain a high bar, I think the bar is way higher now. Look at what like Google will ding you for AI generated content if it's not quality, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that's happening to kind of make sure that quality remains higher. And I think AI has given everybody, I wrote an article about this that I can link in the show notes or whatever, about how you're not ready to DIY with AI yet, because people just think that you just ask it to do something and it'll spit out a result that's quality, and it doesn't. We'll dive more into how to get quality, but yeah, I think it's raised the bar higher. Now we have to be better. Now everything that you're doing has to be a touch above, since you have these tools to kind of make the process faster. So you have to put more emphasis on quality. But
yeah, so let's dive right in. Where do you want to start? So this is your episode. I'm just here to ask questions and tag along and maybe say one or two smart things. So where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing for me is like a little bit of a level set. I really want to talk about the immediate and long-term impacts of AI on marketing. So people are, I think by and large, people are seeing the pace at which it's happening. They're wondering like, what is the long-term result? I think ultimately we don't know is kind of the overarching resounding answer. Like it's too soon to know for sure what it will ultimately do, but it will change things. But I think in the immediate term, as I said before, like it's really going to augment a lot of your efforts in marketing. We'll dive more into that in a sec as well. But I think that's going to happen. And one thing that you've said repeatedly is, the long tail of execution is going to get replaced by AI more and more. And we're seeing that.
So things like editing and spell checking and tone and style and the things coding. And even writing and like we're talking about content. This could be coding, like everything after the concept, the outline, the strategy, the actual long tail, the 80% of work, not 80% of value necessarily. That's going to, if you can outsource it, that's the stuff that's going away. And AI is helping us expedite that, which frankly is the least valuable part of it, but necessary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you said something really smart in a newsletter of yours that you did a long time ago that I really grabbed onto. Yeah, you.
Wow.
And it was good. So I actually committed it to memory because, they're kind of few and far
between. Totally.
Those little nuggets of wisdom. I was like,
every now and then.
This was spicy. I'm going to hang on to that. But what you said was to that effect is that technical skills are changing. Like you started out in web design. I started out as a copywriter. And 5-7 years ago, those were the skills that were high value and that people would pay you for a pretty penny. If you were a good writer and you could write good content, you were going to make money for it. If you were a web developer and you could, write code and do the development and design, then people would pay you a pretty penny for it. AI those were the technical skills back then. as AI is coming out, it's making it easier. It's almost democratizing those skills for people who might not, it might not be their field or their core expertise, their core competency. And so what AI is doing is changing what the technical skills are. The new technical skills will be being able to deploy AI to achieve the result that you want, and kind of removing those traditional technical skilled people from the equation, which is, I hate to say it, it comes back like with my purist mentality. I hate to say that, but it's just, that is what it is. And
well, yeah. So, and also talk about the purist mentality. Like I always say, like it's hard for a writer or a designer or something to give the reins to AI to, because that's the creative act. And we're not really artists, unlike your sister, right? We're in the business of helping companies make money, make an impact, build relationships, so on and so forth. So, as much as I want to be precious and we want to maintain high standards, at the end of the day, it's not an art piece, and it's a business asset. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the wrestle we have to, but I don't know how to reconcile that if you're an artist though.
Everything changes. This is the conversation that I had with my sister the other day, because she's really talented as an artist. But I was saying to her, like, what if you could get ahead of that and figure out how to use AI with your creative input? I'm trying not to jump into the next points because there's so much good stuff that I want to get into, but I was saying, why don't you learn how to use your skills, your fundamental skills as an artist and your concepts, and program AI to create what you want to create in a faster time or in a different way, or like make that your niche or carve out some special thing that you do with it. My rationale to her was like, everything changes, right? Like change is inevitable. It's always going to happen. Like when the internet started to come out, that changed everything. Like I look at my uncle in Chicago was a graphic designer. He started out doing annual reports by hand. He would draw them, right? And then technology comes around, the internet comes around, and he had to be like, okay, well, how do I take the same thing that I'm doing now and reapply it in a different way? So AI is, change is inevitable. Things change. You got to learn how to use it. If you stick too closely to the purist mentality, I get it for artists and, movies and music and all those things where there's a lot of intellectual property involved. But yeah, things change, and you kind of, in our business, being a business and helping businesses to achieve goals, you just have to let go of the purist mentality and figure out how you can deploy these tools in the best interest of your clients. Totally.
Yeah. It's the same as people trying to create blog content that's really, really high. Like they want to make it 99% quality. And it's like, well, do you want to make it, are you here to write your masterpiece, or are you here to get clients? Because getting members and whatnot, 80% is often great, is good enough, and the last 20% is often not worth it unless that's your strategy. But nonetheless, let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the nitty gritty, because we have a lot to cover today.
Yeah.
So where should we take it from here, Taylor?
The next thing, like to paint a picture of some of the things you can do with AI, I wanted to dive into some of the marketing functions that you can augment. And I'm going to use that word augment a lot because it's not replace. Like you can help improve the processes. It's not going to replace your contributions. But there's a number of things that you can do. I think one of them, especially now with, AI is getting access to the internet. In the early days, things like ChatGPT, they couldn't scan online. Their most recent, database was from 2021 or whenever their last update was. But now, ChatGPT or DeepSeek or, whatever it might be, they can actually scan online. So you can use this for research and analysis, competitor analysis, market research, things like that. You're able to use that to gather insights. It can pull from various sources. It can pull, you can ask it to pull reviews from competitors. You can ask it to pull details from websites that you can compare and contrast and identify, white space, where your brand can stand out, things like that. And that's like, if you've ever done that, this can help take a ton of manual labor off of your plate, but you still have to know what you're asking for.
I wonder, a conversation came up about optimizing for AI. A couple of people have asked me this for SEO, doing SEO for AI tools, basically. And I did a quick search, and one of our clients popped up number one in the market when I was asking, show me the top businesses in the space. And now I'm thinking, like, could you ask a tool like ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, hey, here's my website. Can you tell me how I rank for keywords like these, and what I can do to optimize my site better for you, the chat tool, and see if they can kind of come back. Will it do an analysis? I haven't tried that yet, but as you were talking, I was thinking Maybe
Yeah,
that's a little tactic.
and that's another thing I was going to talk about a little bit later on is like everybody uses Chat GPT or AI as a creator, but you can also use it as like a testing mechanism too. So yeah, definitely. And those are things that I'm toying with all the time. It's funny you say that. Like I did a similar search to see if Chat GPT would turn up you and me as far as marketing consultants for the co-working industry. And it did, but it was funny because we weren't like the first and we were blended in with a mix of other ones. So I think everybody's still trying to figure out how that works. How is AI, where is AI gathering this information for? And it seems like it's getting better and better, but it's everything's changing. How like SEO, how people are using search. Like I'm starting to get the feeling that top of funnel research, so where people are trying to figure out, like you're looking at what is co-working or whatever it might be. Maybe people are going to start looking to Chat GPT for those kind of things, and then using keyword-based research or whatever for like the Google SERPs to actually get down into the bottom of funnel research and validation. And then also things like how is AI, how is Google and its AI summaries, like how is it pulling that information? What do you need to do in your blog posts or your website to, have Google identify that and summarize it? It's really interesting territory.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, there's a million ways to approach this, and even just things like, I think with a few clients, we've written like top 10 co-working spaces in market and did our own article version of that. Mm-hmm. And then that ranks on the first page. And so can you actually create AI? Like, can you influence an AI by doing a top 10 co-working operators in city article? And then will the AIs crawl that and then give that back to you in a search? Like if we did like top 10 consultants in the co-working industry, marketing consultants or consultants in the co-working industry, would it then take that information and feed it? Like, I wonder, is it so early that we can kind of game it with some articles?
We did that for a client recently. Used AI to generate a top 10 co-working spaces in market article, which is a cheeky thing to do because you're grabbing onto that, co-working in X market search terminology. But when you're including competitors, the idea theoretically is that you can also get, maybe you show up for their search traffic. So if somebody's searching for your competitors by name, maybe hopefully your article pops up with like the 10 best co-working spaces in X market. And then maybe they're able to sway their consideration. But we did do that recently in the last, 60 days for a client. So okay. I'll keep you posted. Obviously SEO takes some time to pick up steam. But
it's been successful for others. We've done that before, you and I, and it's been successful.
Yeah.
It depends on the market, I assume, but.
And we'll see. Like this was in a small market. This was in like a California market, not a major market. So that might be the kind of way that we figure out if it works or not. But if it does, I'll do a case study on it. I'll keep an eye on it. But yeah, I think that's definitely a consideration.
Okay, we're down a rabbit hole too soon. So where we go back from here?
Yeah. Okay, we'll bring it back to the marketing functions. So kind of along the same vein as research and analysis, you can also develop audience personas. If you're kind of, if you're in the earlier stages of your marketing and you're trying to figure out who you're speaking to, you can use AI for that. I need to preface all of this, I think, by saying that, and we'll dive more into this concept in a little bit, but AI can only, as I said, it's only the middle person. It's only as good as what you give it. So whether you're doing research and analysis, whether you're developing audience personas, whatever that might be, you're going to get out of it what you give to it. So, keep these functions top of mind. And then when we get kind of more into the nitty gritty in a little bit, you can think about how you can apply those to these various functions. So developing audience personas, content and creative production and distribution. Obviously, I've talked a lot about, take this podcast, for instance, we record it on a video platform. We use AI to, edit the snippets, edit the episodes, and then use AI to, create LinkedIn posts and emails and the content distribution around that. So I'll dive a little further into that later.
When Taylor says we, he means Tailmaker does all this stuff. He's the sponsor of the podcast, Tailmaker.
It's a doing the
end-to-end podcast service.
It's a collaborative effort and it's a labor of love.
But there is labor, and I appreciate how much you put into it. But it's great that you're able to leverage tools in a meta example here. And by the way, going back to the persona, or maybe this is a derail, but going back to the personas, you can also interview your members, dump the transcripts into AI and then basically query against and say what are the common threads here, so on and so forth. You can really get into the psychographic, the demographic, the interests, all the stuff with the personas in ways like that, other than just fleshing out the words in your head kind of thing. But sorry, we were talking about content production here. So where were you going to go?
And back down to that, just back to where you were before. I've been talking a lot. I don't know if people are following me on LinkedIn, but I've been talking a lot about automations and emails that you can set up and things like that. And one of the things that I talked about recently was setting up an automated member engagement survey. And again, like that's the same kind of thing. You can get those insights from your members on autopilot, drop them back into your GPT and help to refresh your personas or whatever it might be as you go. So there's ways that you can also you can solicit that information on autopilot without thinking about it, then use AI to help piece it together and figure out what it means. But yeah, content.
That's a way you can do that, I guess. Could you do a survey that feeds into a Google Sheet and then just query the Google Sheet in ChatGPT and say, what's our member saying?
This is what I did. So this is what I did. Okay, this is why
I didn't watch the video. So if that's what you did.
Well, so when I was trying to map out the outline for this episode, like this was one of the things where I wanted to keep it narrow because there's so many integrations that you can do with AI into Google Sheets and things like that. And I was like, don't do it. Don't just like keep it off the table because otherwise we're going to go like completely crazy. But yes, you can integrate ChatGPT, for instance, into your Google Sheets. So you could theoretically take, set up your email, pump it into a survey, put the survey that automatically populates into a spreadsheet in Google Sheets, and then have that synced up with ChatGPT. So you could say, pull from X sheet, give me an update as of X date.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So awesome. This is one of the things, like, as I said, it's really, there's so much. And maybe there's a deeper dive to be had on some of this stuff later, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So back to content production. So you're talking about, like things like this, being able to take our recording and then turn it into show notes, LinkedIn posts, emails, bits, using Riverside to record this. And that has some tools for clips, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you're in the content world, you have to use AI. I don't think you can survive without it anymore.
No, it's essential. It just is what it is. I think, a year ago, I was actually looking back through some of my old content, my blog content from a year ago. And I had one that says, can you actually write content with ChatGPT? And it was like a big resounding no. And I'm like, how the turntables and what I've learned in the last 12 months, because it's moving fast. But I do think
it's like asking your Italian barber if someone, could cut their hair. That's I don't know. Could AI cut your hair? It's like, obviously they're going to say no. And then, I mean, look at me, right? AI cuts my hair. It's not that
bad. Are we entering into the era of robo barbers?
We might. It could be a thing.
Dun dun dun. I feel a remake, an AI remake of Sweeney Todd or whatever. What's that movie? The Demon Barber of Fleet Street.
Yeah, Sweeney Todd, I think. But I mean, there's a lot of fear that AI is going to take your job or whatever else, and I think it's not AI that's going to take your job. I always say it's people who know how to use AI that's going to take your job. So if you're listening to this, like every area of business needs or could benefit from AI. And the sooner you just embrace our evil AI overlords and just accept it, the more supercharged you'll be. You'll be like a bionic human. And that's to the list of
the bionic human
metaphors.
I think it's like, I also think that if you're in marketing peripherally, or even if you're running a business, if you're the CEO, I think treat AI as an interesting learning opportunity. And just stay on top of it, at least to a high degree, a high level, so you know what's going on. I treat AI like learning AI. To me,
I think you got to do more than just at a high level, so you know what's going on. I think it's up to you. If you want AI to be used in your organization, it's up to you to learn, adopt, and maybe even set aside training budget for your staff. And
there's a ton of resources.
Well, maybe we should talk about that at the end, because I'm still figuring out what those resources are.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think, CEOs, owners should lead the charge. I think that people need to treat it like something that, like, have fun with it. I think in the early days, I was so overwhelmed by it that I didn't know where to jump in. So I just jumped in, and over time you start to formulate an understanding of what it is and how you can apply it. But again, like, these are some of the things: research and analysis, developing audience personas, content and creative production, and distribution. I'll dive more into that as well later. I've got a bit of an example. Brand tone and voice development. I think, like, you can really, again, I think this is also maybe earlier stage marketing, or if you're looking to revamp your marketing a little bit, but redefining your brand tone and your voice, and creating a strategy for how those roll out across your business and your various marketing channels and whatever other materials you're putting out there. You can use ChatGPT, you can use AI to create alignment across all of those, find a voice that's unique. We talked a little bit about local SEO and Google business profile optimization, so I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but that is another application here. And overcoming writer's block or strategy ideation, I think a lot of the time where it really helped me, especially early on, was just like whether you're doing a strategy, even if it's business strategy or marketing strategy or content strategy or whatever it is, or even just trying to, write articles or create content, like a lot of you get stuck and you spend a lot of time being stuck. And I think one thing that AI does is just helps you get unstuck more quickly.
Well, it gives you something to edit. It's like the blank page effect. Like if you have some rough ideas and you're like, I just can't get this to word properly, and then they can give you some shape to it or flesh it out a little, and then you go, okay, it's easier to like bounce off one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that like even just people don't seem to realize that you can have conversations with AI. It's not a one-sided thing. Like you can talk to it about what you're trying to do and explain the circumstances of your business and your audience and bounce ideas off of it. You can sit there and have a chat with chat. I've heard like my fiance works in dating apps, and one of the big stories that's been popping up recently is that people have been having relationships with AIs. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh,
it's crazy. But that's how much you can get, a two-way dialogue with these things. And so for overcoming writer's block or just getting stuck with whatever you're doing, that's a huge help. Maybe don't date it. No romantic relationships.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't pass the Turing test, it's not that weird. I mean, if you can't tell if it's a human you're talking to on the dating site, then yeah. Maybe you should meet in real life, though. I think that's the ultimate factor. Not enough real life conversations happening.
Yeah, this feels like iRobot waiting to happen.
Yeah, well, totally. It's already happening for some people. Your stories.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like a startling volume of people, but I digress.
I know.
But on that note of big stories and trends, like if you're doing social media for your co-working space, like a lot of social media is staying current with what's happening, and that can be really hard to stay up to date. But you can use AI for social listening and for keeping on top of trends so that you're back in my PR days, we used to call it newsjacking. I don't know if they still say that, but you can use it to like find new stories and tap into them for your own benefit. For visibility.
Even things like trending audio is more relevant, but still, I mean, the newsjacking still happens, but like trending audio is more of a thing. So if you want to get your clip picked up virally, putting a trending audio is more likely to get people to see it.
Yeah.
And maybe so ChatGPT can say, what are the trending audios, or what should I be looking at as of this month? And you'll get updates on that, and super cool.
Yeah.
But you have to be a practitioner to know what questions, like the idea of trending audio for someone who's not using TikTok or Instagram or whatever is not relevant, right? So you kind of have to know you don't have to know what to say. You can ask questions about what to ask and so on and so forth. But it comes back to a point you made before, or are going to make again, which is the subject matter knowledge of the thing you're trying to do with it.
Yeah. 100%. And we'll dive into that deeper as well, because I think that's so important. I think it's like what we were saying before. People can create a ton of garbage with AI. And it's
and
really
to the layperson, it looks good. It looks good. It looks like something better I would do. But if it doesn't have the nuances that make things successful, then it's not good. It may look good.
And then it feeds into the stigma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a big trust factor there. Yeah.
Totally. And the last thing that I just wanted to mention here, because I think that this is something that like a lot of people can use. I think, like when we talked about metrics back in episode 2, if you're unfamiliar with metrics, or you're not quite sure how to make sense of metrics, like let's say that you're looking at your Google Analytics and you're trying to make sense of what a certain spike means, or I don't know, whatever it might be.
What could it mean? Yeah.
Yeah. You can use AI to just say, hey, here's the circumstances, here's the spike. What does this mean? What are a few possibilities of what this, indicates or whatever? And then you can use that to reverse engineer and fix, or, if it worked out, if it's something that worked, you can use it to continue on. But you can use AI to make sense of metrics. It doesn't even have to be metrics. It can be anything that you're not 100% sure of or don't understand. You can use it to get clarification on what it means, which I think is super, super helpful. Just the ability to ask it questions and get responses.
It could even be things like Google Analytics is a shell of what it used to be. It's a lot harder to use now. A lot of people complain about it, but even things like reports you get from your ads team, your SEO team, your whatever, so on and so forth. So you can say like, what is this analysis maybe telling me? What should I ask as follow-up questions to this? Is there any kind of holes in what's being told versus are there any alternative explanations for these data anomalies, so on and so forth. So you can be a layperson, you can ask the dumb questions to AI and then bring your more intelligent ones to your service provider without feeling like they're feeling like they're getting micromanaged or tested, right? Sometimes you want to ask questions and something doesn't quite sit right with you. You may not want to be confrontational, so you may want to start with the AI. Say, here's what I'm thinking. Is this hypothesis potentially true? And then formulate your thinking in a safe space, and then bring it to the person delivering you your reports to say, like, hey, could be wrong here, but what is this? Could it mean this? Or what are some alternative explanations or things we could be thinking about or doing? So it allows you to be much more informed, which is kind of my role. It's like you talked about reading the analytics. To me, it's like once you're reading the tea leaves, that's a big part of what I do is what do the numbers mean? Yeah. And now AI is like, here's what you can say, here's what you can ask, here's what sounds right, here's where there's holes in their arguments. And so you don't need me anymore, folks. I'm good. I'll see you later.
We'll see ourselves out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%. But I think so. Like we've covered a lot of like kind of what you can do with it. I think the next thing we should probably touch on a little bit is more of like there's some things that you need to know in order to leverage this technology properly. And I think that you kind of need to start there. So, we've talked about this, we've alluded to this a couple times so far, but you still need to know what good looks like, right? Like you still need to know whatever it is that you're doing, whatever craft it is, whether it's ads or content or whatever else it might be, you still need to know the craft to get the best outputs possible. You still need to know what quality looks like. ChatGPT, AI, it's all just an intermediary to help. But if you don't know the fundamentals of what you're doing, if you don't understand what makes great content, what makes great, whatever it might be, then how can you tell it to create quality content?
Yeah. And even strategy too, right? Like it's one thing to get very high quality, but if it doesn't get people to share, to engage, to like, if it doesn't reach new audiences, let's say in the example of content, it's not serving the business function. So if your whole strategy was let's get our content in front of other people's audiences by featuring them, by featuring people, making them look smart, so on and so forth, and that's the purpose of this piece of content. But if that doesn't happen, if you feature the wrong person or they don't have the right audience or they don't actually share the thing, then that strategy doesn't work. So while you could even have a technically perfect thing, if it's not meeting the strategic objectives, then it's not going to get you the business result, or at least you're less likely to get it unless you're lucky.
Yeah.
So both of those things, the knowledge of how things work, so you can feed it with the tactics, so you know what kind of good looks like, but also does this actually work with our strategy here? Does this do the thing we're trying to get it to do, or is it just more content?
Well, that's a really good point too, right? Like it's not just about the granular execution. To your point, everything has to be guided by strategy. If it's not guided by strategy, then no matter what you create, it won't be strategy aligned. It won't be aligned to your business goals, and it won't matter. So you have to have that strategy in place first. You can use AI to help craft some of that strategy if you know what you're doing. It's a little more nuanced. It's not as easy to do, but just lead with strategy, follow with execution, and that's kind of the magic recipe.
The knowledge of those things help.
Absolutely.
The channel and the strategy. Yeah. What else do you need to know?
AI has a context window, which is a good one to know. So as I said before, it only sees what you give it. So, I mean, it sees what you give it. It can also pull from the internet, but it only pulls from what exists. So you need to make sure those materials are accurate. And this is an interesting one from a moral standpoint. I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of strategic process with AI closer to the bottom of this pod. But one interesting thing that I've found with AI, and we were talking before about the artist thing and the stigma around AI, and I think part of that is because in a lot of cases, with AI, it was pulling stuff from the internet without properly crediting sources, maybe bringing traffic away from the websites of the people who created the content. So there was this whole ethical dilemma in addition to just the
artistic dilemma.
So that comes down to the process too. You need to have a process in place where you're feeding it original, unique ideas. But AI has a context window. All that to say is you need to give it the good stuff. You need to treat it like a junior strategist. Think about the setup, not just the task. One place where people go wrong, like I've seen and helped people who are using AI, and they'll give it like a 1 a one sentence question to say, write me a blog post about X, and then they get a result that's terrible and they don't understand why. And it's because you have to treat it like you're training staff. You have to treat it like you're training an employee in your company. You have to make sure that it understands your brand. You have to make sure that it understands your audience, the voice, the business, what you're doing. You have to give it previous campaign examples, goals, all that kind of stuff. So people kind of don't understand how much information you have to feed into this context window in order for it to generate the results that you want, which is really interesting. It's like you're training it like it's a person on your team, even though it's a robot.
Yeah. And it varies by tool. One thing I discovered recently was ChatGPT has a canvas, which is not really, it's kind of hidden. And I was asking ChatGPT about context windows before as well. And so you can say, create me a canvas about my business, Tailmaker, or whatever. Let's pretend it's for your business particular, or for one of your clients, Taylor. And you can begin to put in their brand voice, their brand identity, style guide, target customer, all the things, and then be able to leave that as a context window. So you're like, given everything you know about my brand, my customer, and you've got all the data from my survey reports, and look at all that stuff. I'm trying to write an article about this. Is this the right approach? Or you can start to either write it, and then obviously you're going to get into details. By the way, he's going to get into details later about prompting and how to do all this stuff. But to look up something called canvases, ask ChatGPT, tell me more about your canvas setup, and that can create a little window that it'll just use. Google has a tool, Notebook LLM, same idea. You can put millions of pages of stuff into a context, and then have that, and that could be great for training and all kinds of stuff. But this idea of context windows, so you're not just like, write me an article. You're like limiting the scope, narrowing the focus, knowing what you know about this. Here's what I've given you, and here's some source materials. Help me create something along these lines, and big difference to what you get on the outcome.
Yeah, and you can also create brands. Is that what you're talking? Canvas and brands in ChatGPT. It's interesting though. One thing I've found is that with the context window, it also has a limited scope. So if you're creating something, you kind of need to start fresh and apply the brand or the canvas to it, because I think it's like 300,000 words or something is the context window. So not that you're ever going to write 300,000 words, but if you're getting through multiple iterations of things, sometimes it can start to forget what you told it at the beginning, unless you're reprompting it on the brand that you've set up in there.
Interesting.
I mean, if you're ever writing more than 300,000 words, you're a heavy user.
Well, the cool thing about Canvas is, not to spend too long on this, but it actually will start to organize your content into sections for you and create links to key reference documents and places, and you can then remove it. So it's almost like it creates a Notion document for you with the key stuff, and then it organizes whatever you put into it.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of see it all on the page, and you can begin to kind of remove and delete stuff and update things and say, here's an updated version of the thing I gave you before. Pretty neat as a Canvas tool. So it's kind of obscure and hidden unless you ask ChatGPT to create you one and then to pull it up for you as well. But it sounds like that's a project they're developing further.
Interesting. I need to look into that. It reminds me of like your marketing dashboard with the tabs and all this stuff interlinked. It's like a centralized hub by the sounds of it.
It's exactly that. So I'm going to start to put, basically, once I flesh it out with my clients, I'm going to start putting it into their own canvas. Currently, we can't collaborate on a canvas, but I think that's probably going to come also, where we can both have a canvas. What you can do is export the canvas and someone else can import it, and so then they can kind of own it. But it'd be great to collaborate on the same thing. So you can be jamming you have a chat alongside your canvas and be jamming with the same stuff. But if you're not sure about canvases, I'm sure you could Google it, but I would recommend just asking ChatGPT, tell me about your canvas and create one for me for my business. And begin putting stuff in, and you'll watch it magically. It actually organizes it for you, unlike my Google Docs layperson system where you have to make sure everything's kind of organized. This thing begins to organize notes and reference points and links to your folders, shared folders with your brand assets, and it's wild.
I need to play with that more. I haven't spent a lot of time diving into that, and now I feel like I need to.
Yeah. Well, we want to leave people with that feeling, right? Is how do we feel like, how can you dive into this stuff? And so Canvas is a neat little tool that I recently came about.
Yeah. And so actually on that note, I think the last kind of like one last essential thing I had on AI is, because there's so many tools coming out constantly, it can make you feel like you need to keep up with every tool that's coming out. But I would argue that training is more important than tool selection. So to your point, you're talking about Canvas in ChatGPT, and that's only one platform. You can also now do image generation, pretty high quality. And I have some action figures of Kevin and I that I did for this, TBD whether we share those or not. But the point being, you don't need to feel like, if you want to start using AI in your business, or if you want your team to start using AI in your business, you don't have to go wide. You're better off going deep. Like, you don't need 20 tools. You maybe need 4 or 5 that you really dig into and figure out how to use them properly, because the capability of these platforms is expanding drastically. So
Yeah, it's wild. I'm looking for high quality, high signal AI training because it's hard to find. There's a lot of fluff and garbage out there, but yeah, I think you cannot invest and spend too much time tinkering, learning, whether you're an operator, an owner, or an employee, or a consultant. AI is going to make everything better, and you either adopt it or you kind of become that person who doesn't quite know how to use it and becomes fearful of it. And it's compared to the times when I would hand code websites in my teens and upload via FTP and manage to serve in servers, and like, compared to how technical that was, this is basically talking to a friend. So it's not as intimidating as it may seem. And it can make any part of your business, not just marketing, easier if you just look at saying, how do I take this and make it into better accessible training or operations or a checklist or, whatever, right? SOPs, exactly. It's amazing what you can do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole on everything that we're talking about here. So
we're holding ourselves back. I know that.
I'm going to be mindful of that. But I wanted to get into a couple ways that you can, like, more granular ways that you can get the most out of AI. I think we've covered the types of stuff you can do with it, a few essential things you need to understand. But I also feel like, as I was alluding to before, people don't really understand that you can, say, have a conversation with it, or that you have to give it context, or all those various granular details to get the most out of it. So I wanted to just share a couple of things that you can do to kind of, or your team can do to help maximize their use of AI. One of them is, add output constraints. A lot of people tell AI what they want it to do, but they don't realize that you should also tell it what you don't want it to do, because it confines what the output is. And if you don't give it enough context, if you don't give it enough direction, it will kind of go off on its own own direction. Yeah. So you have to make sure that you're giving it a box to work within, is an important one for sure. And we talked about this earlier, which I think is really interesting. Use it as an AI, or use AI as a simulation engine. So people often ask it, like, write me a blog post, but you don't think about the fact that you can also say, look at this email, pretend that you're a lead, a skeptical lead, read this email and tell me all the objections that you might have, and then figure out how to overcome them.
Even just questions sometimes. What would I ask logically?
Yeah, exactly.
Details. Yeah,
exactly. And to that end, you can tell it to pretend to be something. So in a lot of cases, you can tell it to, it's like role play, which is kind of an odd thing to do with a robot, but you can say, put yourself, you're a world-class copywriting expert getting set to create an article. Or you can say, pretend you're a skeptical, business owner reading this email, as we just said before, and, like, tell me the questions you might ask, tell me the objections you might have, tell me if something's unclear in this. So in addition to using it for creating outputs, you can use it for handling objections. You said earlier, like, test things with it, right? Like, have a conversation with it. If you're going back to your agency or your service provider to ask, like, hey, this metric, what does this mean? Or is there something else we can do? You can actually have that dialogue with ChatGPT to map out the best way to get through it in a safe space, as you said. So you can test tone, refine CTAs. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with it if you treat it as a simulation engine and not just like a vessel for outputs.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is related or not, but yeah, I do like, by the way, like, when you've done a draft of whether it's an email, maybe a sales landing page, and like saying, like, what questions would people have? What objections would they have? What's the most compelling thing? What am I diminishing that should be brought up? You can also ask your sales team to record conversations with salespeople if they're doing it over Zoom, and at least an initial sales call, and say, like, here's what we look for in a sales process. We look for, the reason they're looking for space, what are the most important features, whatever, where they're coming from, the set series of questions. And then say, give me a score based on the process we've designed. Has my sales team lived up to this or not in each of these calls? And you can make it a process of, you upload their calls transcript or recording into one of these tools and ask it these things. So it's a great way, to your point about checking to see, like, have I thought of I've tried my best here. Have I done all the things I could from a process standpoint to make sure that we're most effective at things like sales or content.
Yeah. You can treat it as an extended member of your team almost, right? Once you've got it up to speed with your brand and it knows your business, then you can use it for all those things. but I think creating a process is a big one. At the top of this episode, I'd said garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. So whatever the process is, whatever the function is that you're using it for, you need to have a process in place.
And AI can help you create one, by the way. So if you have a rough one, then you'd be like, can you help me flesh this out? Like, what am I missing here in terms of my process? Like, should it include something or not? Am I doing too much or too little? And then it can give you ideas, and you can decide whether to accept them or not from the kernel of whatever you have.
Yeah. Well, I think that like when I talked about the purist mentality earlier, I think that's part of it too, is like, there's an arrogance that I'm like, I'm the human. I know. I know the best thing. There's no possible way that you might be able to, you as this like AI robot might be able to give me some perspective that would enhance whatever I'm doing. So, but it does.
Actually, pretty good.
It actually can help you quite
not perfectly, but the more context you give it and the more familiarity it builds with you. Like ChatGPT actually remembers all of your history with it. Like supposedly now it remembers all of your history with it. So like I've like asked it questions that I thought was kind of a generic question, but like they applied it to my context, my business, things that I've talked about before. And like, so given you're a consultant for the co-working, like here's what you would do in this scenario. I'm like, whoa, like I forgot you knew that. It's like, okay, should be careful what I ask you, I guess. But
get out of my head.
Even if it's not in a canvas, it's like it still recalls information. You can reference past chats that you've had with them. And it's pretty scary, but powerful.
Scary, powerful, interesting, useful,
valuable,
for sure.
Totally,
valuable, incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
But like going back to the process, we talked about this before, but everything needs to start with strategy, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can use the AI to augment the outputs. You give it the right inputs that you need to get the right outputs. You can use prompt architecture, which I'm going to dive into much more in depth in a second here. But one thing that I always found interesting, I took a course, actually. It was an email course, like an AI email course. And in the course, the guy who's super, super smart, he said something where he said it's a 10-80-10 split when you're using AI. 10% is, upfront human work. 80% is letting the AI do its thing. 10% is humanizing and editing. And through like the last, bunch of months I've spent working on this, I have come to realize that I strongly disagree with that statement. I think it's kind of the opposite. I think it's the inverse. I think it's 40-20-40 would be more like it. 40% is the upfront work, the strategy, the prompts, the inputs, the context, all the things that you have to give an AI for it to create a good output for you. 20% is the AI actually doing what AI does and helping with the output.
Yeah.
But then there's 40% on the back end that's you humanizing it, making sure it makes sense, and making sure that you're getting the result that you want. A good example of this is like the process that we use for creating content. So I'll give you an example. Like, let's say we want to create a case study for a client. The 40% upfront work will be the strategy we develop, understanding what kind of case studies we want and why, who the audience is, what we're going to need to capture in those case studies to move the needle with a reader that's going to help, sell them on what you do. We do interviews with, if it's a client we're speaking to a member, we interview the member, we figure out what questions to ask so we can guide the article to be what we want it to be, the case study to be what we want it to be. Then once we have all that, we combine that with prompt architecture that we've created for each client, for each brand, for each marketing. We have one for blogs, we have one for emails, we have one for social posts, and they're all unique and they're all tailored. That's 40% upfront work. Then we give that to ChatGPT or whatever, and we ask it to, take all this within these parameters, create this case study, go back and forth, edit, and then we have 40% on the back end that's humanizing it and making it into the final form that gets kind of the human stamp of approval.
You're going to show us how to do all this, right? You're not just going to, because my eyes glazed over for a sec there. I was like, well, it sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, I wanted to set the tone for what comes
AI was
first.
The easy button. I thought we'd just say, write me an article on plants in the office and then walk away and come back and publish it and we'll move on. Isn't that what AI does?
You could, if you wanted to waste your time. Well, wow. That's a strong take. That's a strong take.
I would agree. I would 100% agree with you. I mean, if you want, empty content.
Yeah. But so what I wanted to do there without making anybody's eyes glaze over was give an understanding of like what the upfront is. And then I wanted to take people through the actual, I'll show you the prompt architecture that I use for Tailmaker content.
Where can people see this if they're currently listening to this?
If you are listening to this on if you're not watching on YouTube, you'll be able to find this at coworking.marketing/resources. That's where you'll find all of the assets that we give away. So you'll be able to download this there. I just wanted to walk people through this.
Or go to YouTube and watch it.
Go to YouTube and watch it as well,
both.
depending on where you're at.
Links in the show notes.
Can I show two windows at once here? We're learning in real time.
I don't think you can share two windows at once.
I think you can. Are you seeing the prompts here?
Yeah. It's very small on my teleprompter, but I can see it.
But you're looking so dead ahead. It's fantastic.
Take your word for what it says.
So the reason why I wanted to explain to people what the upfront work is, right? Like the strategy, the interviews, all that kind of stuff, is to give you an understanding of what happens before we get into this prompt architecture that I'm showing you here. And so prompt architecture is basically step-by-step process and details that you give to an AI to make sure that it understands what you want and that you're getting the outputs that you're looking for. So once, I'm speaking in the context of an article or a video that I would do for Tailmaker, I would take that, record it, put it on YouTube, and then I would take this prompt architecture with the video and the transcript and drop it into ChatGPT to get it to help me put together an article in its final form. So this is kind of like, it's pulled from a bunch of places. It's pulled from courses. It's pulled from smarter people than me, and then mixed with my own expertise and how I like things done and all the various details. So, if you download this, if you want to use it for your space or your business, make sure that you're, making it your own and thinking about what you want the outputs to be. But this should give you kind of like a step-by-step. So it's a 4-step prompt architecture. The first thing that we do here is, I tell it, you're a world-class copywriting expert. That's the role play we were talking about before. I tell it, I'm going to train you to
by the way, really important. The role play. Any question you can begin with, pretend you are a world-class expert in X. And I think that's a huge, severely limits the scope and makes it way better. Just even that little role play alone, huge benefits.
It's funny how much it will actually make a difference in positioning how it approaches what it does for you. So yeah, to give it the role play. And then one of the most important things here is, I said, garbage in, garbage out. So you need to train your AI to write, on behalf of your brand. So what we have here, let's see if this actually opens next to this or if it displays it. Are you seeing the reference material here, Kev?
Yeah.
Cool. So what we have is basically 56, 60, 100 pages of content that we've already created. So this is what we call source material. So
is this for your business?
This is for Tailmaker. So this is, 6 months worth of content that I've already created. And I've dropped it all into a document here. So I'm setting the tone here with the role play. And then I'm telling it, I'm going to give you a document containing writing examples from the blog, analyze for tone, voice, style, flow, tell me your findings. And then I'll attach the sample material. So what you're doing here is you're giving the AI instructions on what you want. You're giving it a bunch of materials to evaluate and analyze, and then it'll come back and it'll explain to you everything that it's taken away as far as your tone, your conversational style that I use, the structure of the article, all that kind of stuff. So once you have this all plugged in and you've level set with the AI what you want it to do, then we move on to step 2. And so, tell it, imagine you're Taylor Mason. So I'm giving it another role play, right? Pretend you're me now that you've read all my content. Crafting engaging, actionable, and value-driven blog content. So right away, we're telling it, what do we want out of this, right? We're not just saying, write me a blog article. I'm saying I want it engaging, actionable, value-driven. And then getting into the really nitty-gritty of, my writing style, the nuances, how I like to use headers, where to leave a placeholder for the YouTube video that'll be in the article. Don't be afraid to be a little bit blunt. Should be straightforward and serious, but occasionally employ vivid descriptions. Don't be afraid to ask questions in the article. If you've ever read my content, you'll see that I kind of like ask a question to get people to think, and then I answer it. Even things as granular as I don't like when a header is followed by a bullet point. So we give it all these instructions. Tell it what CTA that we want to use. Obviously, anything that you're creating content-wise should have a CTA. And then you tell it, make sure you stick to the style tone or the style notes. And then I add the transcript of whatever video it was that I had recorded. So, last week I did one about content distribution. So I would extract the transcript from that. I would drop it into the GPT with all these instructions. And then you hit go, and then it'll come back with your first draft. And a lot of people would stop here, but I think this is kind of where the rubber meets the road a little bit. You'll get your first draft, and then I think you need to think about, if there's significant edits required, you need to address those. If not, I like to push the AI one step further. So if you have edits, you'd say, thanks for putting it together, please review, we're not quite there, review this and that, and then give it specific edits that you'd like incorporated. If you like it, I always say good start, don't change anything, but give me in bullet point form any details that you might have left out from the transcript. It'll typically tell you, and then you can tell it when and how to incorporate it naturally and organically. So you're taking it one step further. You're getting it familiar. You're giving it an instruction about what you want it to do. You're getting it to edit and humanize. Everybody's eyes glazing over yet? You still with me, Kev?
I'm still with you, buddy. Yeah, Perfect. No, this is great. It's a lot of steps. And just by the way, this is why I like the mindset that someone a content person who just uses AI, it seems like it should only take 20 minutes. And what you're realizing is that the practitioner up front knows what to ask for. The strategy guides where we're even doing, sure the long tail of draft writing maybe is done by AI, and then the practitioner goes back to work to refine it into something that people actually want to consume and therefore share, and then runs it through your lens and says, will this produce a business result? And if not, we got to refine it further. So just for those, with that stigma of AI, if you want to get the results, you still have to kind of put in a similar amount of work. You just don't have to do the long tail of drone-like execution, which is a commodity. As you were.
And to take this, just bring this back to what I was talking about before, this familiarization, instruction, and the transcript and the video that were recorded before, that's the 40, right? That's the upfront 40. Once you hit enter after you enter the transcript, that's where the 20 comes into play. That's where the AI does the long tail of execution of creating it. And then we get into the edits, which is back to kind of that 40% that humanizes it. And then I take it one step further here with scrutiny. So again, let's make a pivot now. I need you to pretend that you're the reader of this article. So again, we're giving it a role play. I'm putting it in the position of, depending on the context of the article and who I think might be reading it, I'll tell it who that'll be. Through that lens, take a look at it. I want you to look for things that are unclear or confusing, anything that's not actionable or where, more actionable context could be provided. Is it too long? Is it too short? Is it engaging or boring? All those kind of things. I'll ask it to kind of review it from the point of view of the audience. And then if I have further feedback, then I'll ask it to integrate it naturally. And then taking it one step beyond that, we'll actually take the article, edit it, humanize it, make sure it sounds like me. We're not just going to take what the AI has given us and just publish it. You're still going to spend, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour to edit it. So this is kind of just an example of how you can use it. Again, this will probably, if you're creating content for your space, this will help. You still have to have the strategy, you still have to have the inputs, but this will at least help take the legwork off of your team and hopefully streamline things for them. But 40, 20, 40.
It can be something that takes you, 7 hours to do start to finish. That could take you maybe 3, which is meaningful savings, like basically 2 days worth of work to like a half a day kind of thing.
Yeah. And the more efficient you get with it, the quicker it becomes, and the more you understand it, and the better you iterate your prompt architecture over time. So if you have it create something for you, no matter what it is, whether it's sales materials or a blog article or an email campaign, you review it, anything you didn't like about it, drop that into your prompt architecture so that next time you're skipping that potential error and you're making it better every single time. But I just wanted to show this as a way that, you can use this. You can take this prompt architecture and turn it into whatever you want. You can adapt it for social media. You can adapt it for sales materials, whatever, one pages, whatever you might be doing. But just to show you what goes into it, the 40 of 2040, the kind of process there. But if you want to use this, if you want to download this, coworking.marketing/resources. And if you have questions about how to use it, drop me an email. I'm happy to just chat with you about how it works and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can see how this really does become, and thank you for generously sharing this. If you go to that link, you can get also past episode resources and future ones like our Coworking KPI, my methodology, my operating system, but it becomes intellectual property, right? Like effectively, this is scary for you because you're like, this is kind of the bones. Obviously it's not everything you do, not even close. It's the bones of the type of thing you do. And they get smarter over time because as you find out that, they always come up with these kind of, we're trying to remove these types of phrases or these types of things that they're constantly doing or using emojis or where they shouldn't. whatever, and those can go back into your instructions. And that's essentially what the software layer looks like. For those of you using AI-based tools that sit on top of an actual AI language model, it's really just a bunch of prompts sitting on top of like human language prompts sitting on top of the native ChatGPTs or what have you. So this is real intellectual property. It's worth investing in because every time you use it, you get to refine it. And so, yeah, super valuable. And thanks, Taylor, for sharing at least a starting point for people.
Yeah,
mind you,
of course.
You probably won't include all of your own articles, so you'll have to maybe customize this to your business if you're listening to this. But
yeah, if you don't have an archive of brand assets, whether it's a brand tone document or a voice document, if you don't have those things or past articles or whatever, you'll probably want to spend some time developing that and putting it down in writing what that actually is. If you don't have it, you can even look at using AI to help you generate that for your space so that you can use it to inform future work. But yeah, always start with strategy. Hopefully this is helpful for people and just taking the legwork out of the long tail of execution, as you say. But yeah, 40, 20, 40.
Love it. All right. So any closing takeaways? I mean, we've got a few things here. We're going a little long, so maybe we can go through very quickly some of the tools you use if you want to do that, or where would you like to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably just to help people get started. I don't want to speak to a bunch of platforms that I don't use or haven't used. So I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about what we do use. Obviously, we've talked ad nauseum about ChatGPT for this in this episode, but that's because you can just do so much with it, from testing to creation to text to image generators. It's also not crazy expensive. So ChatGPT, Claude is good too. I've just stuck with GPT. In the process of putting together the action figure videos of Kevin and I, we may or may not share with this article or this episode, sorry, nim.video gives you a ton of different text to image or image to video creation tools, which is super cheap. Perplexity is really good for fast, like sourced market research, competitive analysis, current trends, things like that. It's good for more complicated research maybe than ChatGPT would. Riverside FM, we shout this platform out every time we do this, but that's what we record this platform on. It helps, AI, this podcast on it. It helps us to, AI generate snippets and AI edit the episodes and cut back a ton of legwork.
Unfortunately, it can't make our ideas sound more intelligent, but AI should be coming soon to help us clean that up.
Yeah. I mean, even my AI that I'm using now, this is all just
all right, multi extra fingered prawns.
Yeah, even that doesn't sound smarter. Otter or Firefly are great for transcription. So if you're interviewing people, or if you're in our last episode, we talked about, this putting CEOs in marketing. So if you want to interview a CEO, or if you are a CEO and you want to transcribe yourself, those tools are great. Send that to your team. They can turn it into thought leadership. POE is another good one that gives you access to a ton of different tools, kind of in like a bundled membership. I think it's $20 a month or something. All these tools that we've mentioned are, I think, like under, they're under $50 a month. So anything that you're using that we should mention here before I close it out?
No, I mean, yeah, I use GPT, Claude, Notebook LM a little bit for research sake. It's a pretty neat tool. Allows you to store a bunch of information. It can even generate a podcast of people talking about that information. So if you're kind of an audio learner, it's a great way to like learn and then listen to someone talk about the interesting parts. Some things I do are like flesh out my thinking. So I'll be like, here's kind of what I want to say. And am I missing anything that's important, or can I tighten this up, or the rooms, to make this whatever, improve it in some way. I use Zoom's native AI recording feature. It doesn't record the audio, but it takes notes. And so I find those notes gives really good action items out of it. So if you're having a lot of calls, I personally prefer to use the the Zoom AI notes recorder as opposed to these video recorders, only because I feel like, do I want every single conversation I'm having with everyone to be recorded, and like audio, full audio, like not that I'm saying anything that I don't want recorded. It's just, do you really want every single thing you ever say to be recorded? So I'd rather have those be in text format and and just reference them later. And then I can even put those into GPT and say, like, what have we been saying? What are recurring themes? What's getting done? What's not? That kind of thing. Asking for advice, like saying, here's kind of my thoughts on things, and having a canvas or some area that you can just explain yourself and put in data and have it learn about your business and your questions and where your head is at. It can be really important than asking a question. So kind of like having a coach or an advisor. Again, not trying to replace my job here, but it's going to happen anyway. So might as well lean into it. Trainings, so like using, if you're doing SOPs and you're doing training and whatever else, like putting it in and using it as a way that people can query. Like there's chat tools out there now. And you can like ask questions. So like that's kind of the way things are going. How do I do this thing? It can generate the answers for you. So playing around with that as a training device. And imaging graphics, like, removing headrests or adding a plant to the room. It's not perfect yet. ChatGPT 4.0 has just gotten a lot better at generating images that look very, very like your source image, but they're still kind of recreating the image. And therefore, if you look closely enough, the details are a little fuzzier than they were. They're not exactly what your photo represented, which is unfortunate. So you just have to be careful that you're not misrepresenting your space with AI photos that kind of look like photos, but are actually just kind of a recreation that's, really makes it look like what it's not.
Good tip.
Yeah. So playing with all of it, and I'm just, trying to find time to go deeper on it. And everything I do in my work, I'm sure I could use AI to make it better. So yeah, next time we check in, I'm sure we'll have a lot more examples for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we said we were going to keep it short. We did our best. We went a little off the rails. So thank you for listening. I'll turn it over to you to close it out, because you're the man with the closeouts.
Every time I do a closeout, it gets less and less impressive. You can find
Which is good, because I would make it longer and longer.
Yeah, I know. Tailmaker at tailmaker.ca. He focuses on all things content related to co-working spaces, and I'm at everspaces.com. And I help co-working spaces get full. And that's it. You can head over be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. I feel like not enough people are doing that. There's only 5 of us over on YouTube, but
we're taking it personally.
Where we will start to send the AI robots after you if we find out you're listening and not watching. Also, I think, Taylor, we should potentially consider uploading our entire episode video format onto LinkedIn as well. I think we might find that people watch it there as well. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll do that.
We'll test it out.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see you in the next episode. And good luck with the haircuts.
Thank you, sir.